The Colosseum, also known as the Flavian Amphitheatre, remains one of humanity's most astonishing architectural feats, a monument that has withstood nearly 2,000 years of war, earthquakes, and time itself. To understand how such a colossal structure was built, we must return to a world of emperors, slaves, and visionaries, to Rome in the 1st century AD, when the empire stood at the height of its power and ambition. After the chaotic reign of Emperor Nero, Rome was desperate for renewal. Nero had constructed his extravagant golden house, the Domus Aurea, across a vast swath of central Rome, complete with artificial lakes, marble halls, and gilded ceilings. When he died, the new emperor, Vespasian, sought to erase Nero's legacy and restore the city's dignity. His answer was the Colosseum, a gift to the Roman people built directly on the site of Nero's private lake. What once symbolized imperial excess would now become a symbol of public unity. The decision was not just political, it was deeply symbolic. Draining Nero's lake and building a public arena in its place was a message. The emperor serves the people, not himself. Construction began in 72 AD under Vespasian, continued under his son Titus, and was completed by 80 AD under the supervision of Emperor Domitian. This project mobilized tens of thousands of workers, soldiers, slaves, engineers, and artisans, each contributing to what would become the greatest amphitheater of the ancient world. The foundations were dug deep into the ground, 12 meters thick, composed of Roman concrete and travertine limestone. This base ensured that the structure could endure the weight of stone tiers, marble statues, and over 50,000 spectators. Roman concrete, known as opus caementitium, was an innovation that revolutionized construction. It was made from volcanic ash, lime, and water, forming a mixture that could harden underwater and resist cracking. The Romans didn't just build with stone, they built with science. Above this foundation rose a perfectly elliptical frame, 189 meters long and 156 meters wide, reaching over 50 meters in height. The exterior featured 80 arches on each level, decorated with the 3 classical orders of Greek architecture: Doric at the base, Ionic above it, and Corinthian crowning the structure. This arrangement wasn't accidental. It symbolized both Rome's respect for Greek heritage and its own mastery of order and proportion. To walk around the Colosseum in its prime was to feel the pulse of an empire that believed nothing was impossible. Inside, the amphitheater was a marvel of organization. 80 entrances allowed for the efficient flow of spectators. Numbered gates and corridors led directly to assigned seats, a system that could empty or fill the entire arena in minutes. The Romans were the inventors of crowd management long before the modern stadium. There were no paper tickets. Instead, visitors carried small clay tokens with engraved numbers matching their entrance and seat. Every citizen had a place, and every place had a purpose. The seating tiers themselves were a reflection of Roman society. Closest to the arena sat the senators, powerful men draped in togas of white and purple, their names etched into marble seats. Above them were the equestrians, members of the noble class who held wealth and influence, but not senatorial rank. The next level was reserved for Roman citizens, divided further by wealth and gender, while the highest wooden terrace accommodated the poor, slaves, and even women, the lowest ranks of society. Yet despite these divisions, the Colosseum was one of the few places where all classes gathered under one roof. It was, in its own way, a unifying force, Rome's social hierarchy carved into stone. The arena itself was a stage of death and glory. Measuring 83 by 48 meters, it was covered in sand, harina in Latin, which gave the word arena its name. The sand absorbed the blood of men and beasts, concealing the brutality beneath the pageantry. Below the arena floor lay the hypogum, an intricate 2-level labyrinth of tunnels, cages, and machinery. Though added later during Domitian's reign, it became the heart of the Colosseum's magic. This hidden underworld held gladiators, wild animals, and stage crews who orchestrated spectacles that seemed to defy nature itself. Through a system of elevators, trapdoors, and pulleys, lions could burst from beneath the sand, and gladiators could rise into the light of the arena as if conjured by the gods. The engineering behind these mechanisms was nothing short of genius. Wooden platforms operated by counterweights and winches allowed for precise timing. The Romans used capstans, vertical axles turned by teams of slaves, to raise heavy cages from the subterranean levels to the arena floor. Imagine the sound. The creak of wood, the groan of rope, the muffled roar of a lion waiting below. To the audience it was pure wonder. To those beneath, it was sweat, muscle, and fear, but the Colosseum spectacles went beyond gladiatorial combat. During the early years, it was said that entire naval battles, naumachii, were staged within its walls. The arena could be flooded with water diverted from aqueducts through underground channels, transforming it into a miniature sea. Wooden ships crewed by prisoners reenacted historic battles, clashing with real weapons under the gaze of the emperor. Though historians debate how frequent or practical these events were, the concept itself illustrates the ambition of Roman engineering. To command not only men, but also water, was to command nature itself. The Colosseum was not only an arena of blood and spectacle, but also a masterpiece of planning and innovation. Every section of its structure served a purpose, from the hidden chambers below to the retractable awnings above. The Romans called the vast canopy the velarium. It stretched over the seating areas to provide shade from the harsh Mediterranean sun. Operated by sailors from the Roman navy, the velarium was an immense fabric system of ropes and pulleys fastened to wooden masts that rose from the top of the amphitheater. When the emperor attended the games, the awning was drawn with precision, creating patches of shadow that rippled across the crowd like waves. The smell of sea air mingled with the scent of sweat, oil, and excitement. For the spectators, it was not merely a building, it was the beating heart of Rome. Behind the scenes, the Colosseum was a machine powered by human labor. Beneath the arena, in the dim tunnels of the hypodrome, slaves worked tirelessly to prepare the next act. Some pushed enormous capstans to lift platforms. Others tended to the cages of lions, tigers, elephants, and bears imported from Africa and Asia. The animals were brought into the city through underground corridors leading directly to the Colosseum, ensuring the crowds above never saw the chaos that brewed below. In these cramped chambers, gladiators waited for their turn, listening to the roar of the audience as their predecessors met their fate above. Some prayed to the gods for courage, others whispered to each other about freedom, for a victorious gladiator could earn his life back. The life of a gladiator was complex and often misunderstood. Many were slaves, prisoners of war, or condemned criminals, yet some were volunteers, men seeking fame, wealth, or redemption. They trained in schools known as ludi, the most famous of which, the Ludus Magnus, stood just across the road from the Colosseum itself. There, under the strict eye of their instructors, they practiced with wooden weapons, building strength and skill for the real battles to come. The best fighters were admired by the public almost as modern athletes are today. Crowds chanted their names. Women wore their likenesses as charms. For some, the arena was hell. For others, it was the only place they truly lived. When the day of the games arrived, the city of Rome awoke before dawn. Trumpets echoed through the streets as citizens hurried toward the Colosseum, clutching tokens that marked their entrance. Vendors sold bread, wine, and olives to the waiting crowds. The air buzzed with anticipation. Inside, the emperor and senators took their seats of honor, surrounded by guards and attendants. The lowest classes filled the wooden benches above, straining for a view. Then, with the blast of a horn, the games began. The opening acts were often displays of exotic animals, elephants, leopards, crocodiles, paraded for the amusement of the crowd before being forced into combat with hunters armed with spears. These venaciones, or animal hunts, were carefully choreographed to demonstrate man's dominance over nature. Sometimes entire landscapes were recreated on the arena floor, complete with artificial forests and painted backdrops. The Romans could transform the Colosseum into any world they desired: a desert, a jungle, even a stormy sea. Each show was meant to remind the spectators that Rome's power extended to the ends of the earth. After the hunts came the executions. Condemned criminals known as noxi were thrown into the arena to be devoured by beasts or forced to fight each other to the death. These were not trained gladiators, but ordinary men and women, punished publicly as examples of imperial justice. For the audience, it was part of the entertainment, but for Rome's rulers, it was also a demonstration of absolute authority. The message was clear: defy the empire and the arena awaits. Then came the gladiators. The gates of life and death opened, and from the shadows beneath the arena they emerged, armored, armed, and ready. Each fighter belonged to a specific class: the Murmillo with his heavy shield and fish-shaped helmet, the Retiarius armed only with a net and trident, the Secutor designed to chase him, and many others. The duels were not mindless brawls. They were highly skilled contests, often governed by strict rules and referees. The crowd judged every move. A well-fought battle could earn thunderous applause, while a cowardly one might draw jeers. Victory was not only survival but spectacle. When a gladiator was defeated and lay wounded in the sand, all eyes turned to the emperor. With a gesture of the hand, the fate of the fallen was decided. A thumb turned upward or downward, though historians debate the exact gesture, sealed life or death. The arena would erupt in cheers or groans, and another life would fade into history. The sand was raked clean, the blood covered, and the next combatants prepared to enter. The games could last for days, with hundreds of fights, hunts, and performances unfolding one after another. It was both horror and theater, savagery and art. Despite the brutality, there was an undeniable sense of grandeur. To the Romans, the Colosseum embodied their empire's might. It was a symbol that said, "We can tame beasts, conquer men, and even command the elements." The emperors used it to win the hearts of the people, offering free games, food and coin in exchange for loyalty. Bread and circuses, that was the formula for peace in Rome. And for centuries it worked, yet behind the glory, cracks were forming. The cost of maintaining the games was enormous, and the empire's borders were growing unstable. Over time, the frequency of the grand spectacles declined. The hypogeum, once filled with noise and movement, fell silent. The last recorded gladiatorial games were held in the 5th century AD, long after the Colosseum's golden age had passed. When Christianity spread across the empire, the blood sport once seen as entertainment came to be viewed as barbaric. The arena of heroes became a relic of a darker past. As the Roman Empire began to crumble, the Colosseum stood as a silent witness to its decline. The grand festivals grew fewer, the crowds smaller, and the emperors less powerful. When the Visigoths sacked Rome in 410 AD, the city that once ruled the world fell into chaos. The Colosseum, once filled with the roar of lions and the cheers of 50,000 voices, now echoed only with the wind. Its marble seats were abandoned, its corridors empty, and its walls scarred by time. Yet even in ruin, it refused to die. Nature crept in. Weeds sprouted through cracks in the stone, birds nested in the arches, and rainwater pooled where emperors once sat. The arena floor rotted away, exposing the labyrinth beneath, a ghostly reminder of the lives once lost and the glory that had been. Rome itself changed, but the Colosseum endured, an eternal skeleton of the empire's ambition. During the Middle Ages, the Colosseum found new purposes. It became a fortress, a quarry, and even a home for the living. Noble families such as the Frangipani and Annibaldi seized parts of it, fortifying its walls and using it as a castle to control nearby streets. Later, its stones were scavenged to build churches and palaces. The marble that once decorated the amphitheater was stripped away to adorn the cathedrals of Christian Rome, including St. Peter's Basilica. Iron clamps that held the stones together were torn out, leaving deep scars still visible today. Piece by piece, the monument that once symbolized Rome's unity became a patchwork of history, dismantled, reused yet never forgotten. By the 13th century, earthquakes had further damaged the structure. Huge sections of the outer wall collapsed, leaving the iconic half-ruined silhouette we recognize today. The fallen stones lay scattered around its base like broken teeth. For centuries, the people of Rome saw the Colosseum not as a monument of glory, but as a convenient source of building material. And yet, despite neglect, something about it remained sacred. As Christianity took deeper root, a new interpretation of the Colosseum emerged. The arena, once soaked with the blood of martyrs and slaves, came to be seen as a site of sacrifice. Pilgrims whispered that countless Christians had died there for their faith, though historians still debate the accuracy of that claim. Regardless, the belief transformed the amphitheater's image. It was no longer a symbol of pagan cruelty, but a reminder of human endurance and divine redemption. Crosses were erected within its walls, and processions were held to honor the dead. The Colosseum was reborn as a place of prayer rather than spectacle. During the Renaissance, scholars and artists began to rediscover the grandeur of ancient Rome. They studied the ruins with awe, sketching every arch and column. Architects like Bramante and Michelangelo visited the Colosseum, learning from its perfect proportions and strength. They called it a wonder of the world, a lesson carved in stone. Even in decay, the Colosseum inspired the rebirth of art, science, and architecture. Its influence echoed in the amphitheaters and stadiums that would rise across Europe centuries later, but admiration alone could not save it. By the 1700s, large portions of the structure were dangerously unstable. Pope Benedict XIV, moved by its spiritual and historical significance, declared the Colosseum a sacred site dedicated to the Passion of Christ. This decree marked the beginning of its preservation. No longer would its stones be taken for other buildings. The wounds of the amphitheater would finally begin to heal. Excavations began in the 19th century, revealing the hypogeum once more, the intricate underworld where the machinery of spectacle had once thrived. Archaeologists uncovered cages, tunnels, and traces of wooden elevators, bringing to light the ingenuity hidden beneath centuries of dust. Each discovery told a story, of slaves who labored in the dark, of beasts that emerged to die, of men who fought for honor and freedom. The Colosseum was not merely stone, it was memory, preserved layer by layer. By the time modern Italy was born in the 19th century, the Colosseum had become more than a ruin. It was the soul of a nation. Travelers from across the world came to see it. Poets wrote of its majesty, and artists painted its golden arches against the Roman sunset. It was a symbol of endurance, beauty, and the passage of time. Even emperors and popes had come and gone, but the Colosseum remained, silent, unyielding, eternal. In the 20th century, restoration efforts grew more ambitious. Engineers stabilized the outer walls, archaeologists mapped every corridor, and historians reconstructed its story from fragments of stone and parchment. When lights were first installed around the monument, illuminating it at night, it was as though Rome's past had awakened once again. The Colosseum glowed against the dark sky, no longer a ruin of defeat, but a monument reborn in light. Today, millions of visitors walk through its gates each year, tracing the same paths once trodden by senators, slaves, and gladiators. They stand where emperors watched battles unfold, and where cheers once shook the air. The sand is gone, the blood long washed away, yet the echoes remain. The Colosseum tells not only the story of Rome, but of humanity itself, our hunger for greatness, our capacity for cruelty, and our endless desire to build something that outlives us, even now. Restorers and historians continue their work, gleaning the ancient stones, reinforcing the arches, and uncovering new secrets hidden beneath the earth. The Colosseum is still alive, not as it once was, but as a living memory of what humankind can create and destroy. Cherish and forget again and again. Some evenings, when the sun sets behind the ruins and the light touches the old marble, the amphitheater seems to breathe. You can almost imagine the crowd returning, the drums, the trumpets, the chanting of thousands of voices calling out as the gates of life and death open once more. And then, for a fleeting moment, the ancient heartbeat of Rome can still be heard. The Colosseum stands today not only as a ruin of the past, but as a living testament to what humanity can achieve when ambition meets ingenuity. Its survival is as remarkable as its construction. For nearly 2 millennia, it has endured earthquakes, wars, looting, and pollution. The secret to its longevity lies deep within its design. The Romans built with an understanding of balance and flexibility that modern engineers still admire. The travertine blocks that form its outer walls were not cemented together, but held in place by iron clamps and fitted with astonishing precision. This allowed the entire structure to absorb shocks without collapsing. Beneath the surface, a complex drainage system carried away rainwater, protecting the foundations from erosion. Even the corridors were designed for strength, with arches that distributed weight evenly, allowing the amphitheater to remain stable despite its immense size. The materials themselves tell a story of empire. The travertine stone came from quarries in Tivoli, 20 miles from Rome, and was transported by ox-drawn carts and boats along the Tiber River. The concrete was mixed on site, while bricks and tufa were supplied by workshops across the city. Thousands of laborers worked day and night, guided by skilled engineers and architects whose names have been lost to history. The emperor may have claimed the glory, but it was the sweat of anonymous builders that raised the Colosseum skyward. Archaeologists studying the site have uncovered small marks, carved into the stones, symbols and initials left by those ancient workers. Each mark represented a team or guild responsible for a section of the construction. These carvings, still visible in certain areas, are the fingerprints of the forgotten hands that shaped Rome's greatest monument. What makes the Colosseum extraordinary is not only its size or beauty, but the way it united so many aspects of Roman civilization: architecture, engineering, politics, art, and spectacle. It was a place where emperors could display power, citizens could find excitement, and the empire itself could celebrate its might. For the Romans, entertainment was not mere leisure. It was propaganda, a performance of strength. Every stone, every roar of the crowd was part of a narrative that proclaimed, Rome is eternal, and yet time has a way of humbling even the greatest empires. The Colosseum, which once represented domination and conquest, now stands as a symbol of endurance and reflection. Its empty arches frame the sky like windows into history. Where once banners of the empire flew, now the flags of tourists wave. The same corridors that echoed with cries of victory now fill with whispers of wonder. People from every corner of the world come to stand in its shadow, drawn by the same fascination, a desire to touch the past, to feel the heartbeat of something greater than themselves. At night, when the crowds have gone and the city quiets, the Colosseum transforms again. The floodlights cast long shadows across its ancient walls, and the arches glow a soft golden hue. From a distance, it looks almost whole, as if the centuries of ruin have melted away. In those hours, it feels easy to imagine the amphitheater alive again. The noise, the dust, the blinding sun over the arena. The silence becomes its own kind of applause, offered by the modern world to a masterpiece that refuses to fade. In recent decades, new technologies have allowed historians to see the Colosseum in ways never before possible. Laser scans, 3D reconstructions, and virtual models have revealed the precision of its design. Archaeologists have even identified traces of paint, suggesting that the Colosseum was once decorated in vibrant colors rather than the pale stone we see today. Red, blue, and gold adorned its walls, reflecting the splendor of the empire that built it. It was not a grey ruin, but a living canvas, full of colour, movement and sound. Preservation has become a constant effort. Pollution, vibrations from traffic, and the sheer passage of time threaten the ancient structure. Teams of specialists clean the travertine with water mist, repair cracks, and monitor shifts in the foundation. In recent years, a vast restoration project funded by both the Italian government and private sponsors has brought new life to the monument. Parts of the outer wall have been strengthened, the underground passages reopened, and sections of the arena floor reconstructed to give visitors a glimpse of its former glory. The Colosseum's image has become one of the most recognizable symbols in the world. It appears in films, literature, and art. It is printed on coins and postcards, projected onto screens and hearts alike. For Italy, it is more than a national treasure. It is the embodiment of cultural identity. For the world, it stands as proof that human creation can outlast human conflict. And perhaps that is its greatest message. When it was built, the Colosseum was meant to glorify Rome and its emperors. It celebrated triumph through violence and domination. Today it serves a different purpose. It unites rather than divides, reminding us not of power, but of endurance. It tells the story of human contradiction, our capacity to build beauty from brutality, to create monuments that transcend the flaws of their makers. Every visitor who walks through its arches becomes part of that story. Some come to marvel at the architecture, others to feel the weight of history. Children run their hands along the stone, lovers take photographs, scholars measure and debate. And in their presence, the Colosseum continues its ancient role, to gather people together, to remind them of their shared humanity. In a sense, the amphitheater is still performing. The audience has changed, the battles have ceased, but the awe remains. It stands as both a warning and a wonder, a relic of cruelty and a masterpiece of genius. Its stones whisper that empires rise and fall, but art endures. Its arches remind us that even from ruin, something eternal can emerge. If one listens closely, beneath the hum of modern Rome, the traffic, the voices, the wind, one can almost hear the echoes. The tramp of sandals on stone, the clash of steel, the gasp of 50,000 spectators as the gates open and the light spills across the sand. Then silence again, deep and reverent, as the Colosseum returns to its timeless vigil over the city it once ruled. It is not only a monument of the past, but a bridge between worlds, between what was and what remains. The Romans built it to last a lifetime. Instead, it has lasted the lifetimes of nations. Long after the empire vanished, the Colosseum still stands, teaching each generation the same truth, that greatness is fleeting, but legacy is forever. And so the Colosseum still stands, cracked, scarred and silent, yet undefeated. It has seen empires rise and crumble, kings crowned and forgotten, faiths born and lost to time. Every stone bleeds history, every shadow hides a story that once shook the world. But maybe the real question isn't how the Colosseum survived. Maybe it's why. Because deep down, it reminds us of what we all are: builders, dreamers, destroyers, and survivors. The Colosseum isn't just a ruin of the past. It's a mirror of humanity itself, flawed, beautiful, and everlasting. And as the last light fades over Rome, one truth echoes through the ages: empires fall, but legends never die.